man. Gotta get away. Oh, oh, Faye. All right. We gotta get away, Faye.
Betty and Barney were then led onto a spacecraft.
They were taken into separate rooms, and they were given a very, very weird kind of physical examination there. They took Betty's and Barney's shoes off. They examined their feet very closely, their hands, and apparently they also wanted to know about our reproductive systems.
It's bigger than anything I've ever seen. And he said he just wants to put it in my navel. I tell him no, it won't hurt. Tell him no. Hurting it, getting it out.
Barney Hill was taken into another room who had an examination as well, and also sperm taken from him.
Dr. Simon, their psychiatrist, believed that something had terrified the Hills, but not aliens.
He wondered if perhaps Betty had relived her dream in hypnosis, and that Barney might have absorbed some of the information from Betty's dream and confabulated.
He believed that they saw something as they were driving through the White Mountains of New Hampshire that frightened them greatly. But he didn't believe for a moment that they were actually abducted by aliens.
Luchtrampen kunnen een ware catastrofe zijn.
Probably saw an unusual conjunction of planets that night, followed by a series of lights along the road home that they mistook for the UFO in their exhausted state. Their decision to drive home from Canada through the night rather than stay in a hotel may have been their undoing.
At the beginning of their sighting, they probably saw Jupiter near the moon. They had been driving something like 16 hours or whatever. People's minds are in that sort of a state. They're much less likely to be objective about dealing with anything strange that might come up.
But whatever happened, Betty and Barney became reluctant celebrities. The first people in the U.S. to report being abducted by aliens. Their sensational tale exploded in Look magazine, a book, and then a movie starring James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons. Kathy Martin remains convinced her aunt and uncle did undergo a real abduction experience.
I do believe they were abducted. Who knows? If they were extraterrestrials, if they were interdimensionals, if they originated from someplace on Earth and we've never seen them before, that's a good question. We really don't know.
What is certain is that the Hill case had an enormous influence on the world of UFOs and opened the floodgates of alien abduction claims.
And in the 70s, there were more and more and more and more.
And they were kind of imitative of the Hills in that you went out somewhere, usually at night, in some lonely spot, when all of a sudden you see a light in the sky, and then it comes down and they get you.
Two men near Pascagoula, Mississippi, said last week that some sort of spaceship landed near them out in the country and that they were taken aboard and photographed.
And they didn't have hands as we have. They had more or less like pinchers or claws or something like that.
It was hovering up here, just below the tops of the trees.
Logger Travis Walton caused a sensation by going missing for 5 days after his friends reported seeing him blasted by a light from a UFO. In Stanford, Kentucky, 3 women claimed their car had been taken over by a UFO. Later, under hypnosis, they recalled being taken aboard the spacecraft and experimented upon. They all followed the Hill template: outdoor UFO encounters, strange episodes of missing time and shocking revelations of abduction and bizarre medical experiments revealed through hypnosis. But Project Blue Book, which had recorded the Hill UFO report, was no longer around to investigate these later abduction cases. It had been shut down in 1969. Not that it had ever been the crack team of investigators that it purported to be.
At the peak, only 12 people worked at the project. Most of the time, it was four people, 5 people working there, an officer, a few enlisted, and a secretary.
The Air Force, wanted to minimize a public interest in this topic. And lots of times they issued absolutely ridiculous responses or ridiculous determinations as to what an object was. If something was reported by pilots and crew and, behaved a certain way, they would just try to explain it away.
To this day, no branch of the U.S. government will officially take a report of a UFO, let alone investigate one.
It was a great big, huge yellow glow out there.
Shutting down Project Blue Book did nothing to stop the sightings.
Saw this figure, it's kind of a rectangular shaped head.
Or the reports of abductions. But the typical alien abduction experience was about to undergo a disturbing turn.
You didn't have to go out and find the aliens anymore. You would just stay in your bedroom, and the aliens would come and find you.
I was on a table in one of we call the exam rooms, and with the doctors and scientists or whatever, working on me, and this machine came down and scooped out my right eye and just pulled it out as I was looking at it, and this is what I'm remembering.
Audrey and Debbie, identical twins from Oxford, Maine, believe they've been abducted repeatedly by UFOs since early childhood.
I think maybe 4 or 5 years old is my first conscious memory. I remember going to sleep at night and begging my parents not to put me to bed because the bald men were going to come and get me. We used to have bunk beds, and sometimes I'd be asleep on the bottom bunk, and Debbie would be on top, and we'd have an experience with the bald man, and the next morning, we'd be in the opposite beds.
So-called bedroom abductions, like Audrey's and Debbie's, moved into the mainstream in the 1980s. It was a time when using hypnosis to recover forgotten memories was increasingly popular. UFO researcher Bud Hopkins found that people who suffered from missing time were likely to harbor such memories. Temple University professor David Jacobs went beyond teaching about UFOs as part of his American history course and began hypnotizing abductees. The number of reported cases of abduction exploded, and the details began to accumulate, as similar as they were bizarre, especially those having to do with reproduction. Over the years, David Jacobs' vision of the alien abduction phenomenon has gotten progressively darker.
It happens to everybody. There's no particular group, in other words, that it happens to. And people do not remember what happened to them immediately after the abduction event, within seconds. People will be abducted over and over and over and over again.
Where's the other pictures?
Like David Jacobs' subjects, the twins have recovered memories of reproductive experiments, especially ones that seem to be geared toward breeding a race of human-alien hybrids.
They're taken on board, their clothes are removed, sperm is taken, eggs are taken, eggs are harvested, might be fetal implant, might be a fetal extraction, that's done.
Because of hypnosis, I remember getting
examinations that weren't, you know, it was reproductive examinations, getting shots, really painful shots.
I had some unidentified scar tissue so bad I had a partial hysterectomy.
Then they take him into another room sometimes, where there's tanks filled with liquid. And in these tanks, there are fetuses in various stages of gestation. Some look quite human, some look quite alien, most look in the middle.
And there was 2 glass, almost like incubator-looking things in this room. There was a baby, and it was very human-looking, but not completely. And then there was another one next to it, which was not human-looking at all.
My guess is that they are making beings to be exactly like humans. And eventually they will be here and we will be simply supplanted. But all the institutions will stay in place. There won't be any carnage. Nobody will be killed, I don't think. I hope not. But I think that what they want is an intact society that they can just begin to evolve into. Now the question is, well, why do they want to do that? We don't know the answer to that. We do not know.
And this is the being that I'm really close with, him. I communicate with him a lot. His name is Sephril.
Though Audrey and Debbie suspect they've been part of the breeding experiments run by the Greys, they've also had spiritual encounters with friendly aliens, particularly a race of tall, Nordic-looking beings who teach them and seem to be preparing them for something.
I remember asking them at one point, why are you doing this, or what are you doing? And they told me that they're activating our DNA, our dormant DNA, for
enlightenment.
What was it? Enlightenment. Yeah, for enlightenment purposes, and something's going to happen real soon.
For those who have studied the effects of hypnotism, especially memories retrieved during hypnosis or hypnotic regression, abduction memories are highly suspect. Paranormal investigator Matthew Baxter is also a hypnotist.
You learn very quickly that when you regress somebody, they just tell what's in their imagination. They make up stories. They're very real to them, but they make up stories.
Studies have repeatedly shown that hypnosis does not improve memory, but it can create false memories and solidify a person's belief in those memories. For skeptics, it's no coincidence that UFO abduction stories began showing up in the therapy-crazed 80s, along with other hypnosis-related phenomena like satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder, all based on hypnotically retrieved memories.
The problem here is the evidence for all this. It's hard to think of weaker evidence. It is human memory. It is recalled through hypnosis with all its attendant problems. It is administered by amateurs like me. And then comes this anecdotal information. It's the bottom of the pile of evidence, but it is evidence.
Hypnosis may be the key to recovering so-called memories of abductions. But another brain phenomenon may be responsible for kickstarting the idea in abductees' minds to begin with. It's called sleep paralysis, and it's a true waking nightmare.
I was held down by these living sort of ribbons that came across me and tightened up around me and bound me down. And then, of course, the aliens filed into the room and levitated me and took me out of the room. And it was a very bizarre experience. And I thought, I'm being abducted. You know, why? Why am I being abducted? What are they doing? Turns out I was just having sleep paralysis.